7 additional games through their third-party competitions, and it looks like they're going with that same trend. Ryoma speaking out in interviews about the fact that they're able to take each of these games seriously to make sure they're evolving as individuals in a cohesive unit.
Yep, so going through the draft, you heard them talking about earlier on in the cast about the rising priority of Corki. Seeing globally a lot of people going for first pick on it. It hasn't quite risen to ban priority for a lot of people. You know, you still see it, Caitlyn, the TF in a lot of the times, but a lot of the power picks have gotten through here. Golden Guardian saying, nope, we still prefer the TF. Go ahead, TSM Academy, effectively, you know. We don't expect to be able to pilot a global focused champion strong enough to outdo the scaling of Corki. We'll have to see if they can actually put him in their place for TSM.
And Ryoma being such a trusted individual to pilot a pick that has been so core to a lot of the compositions. Meanwhile, on TSM's side, obviously taking the Caitlyn off the table, a couple enchanters as well. Chime having a lot of prowess on the engaged supports, but really leaning into some of those meta picks. So instead, you want to take him off of something like the Lulu that can really enable a Zhao, for instance, that just got locked in on the opposite side for Iconic.
Yeah, a lot of focus down on Chime. We'll see if they want to get a specific matchup or just limit the scaling potential, because even combos with the jungler too. Talk about a lot of the combinations with Zhao, that's all off the table. They already have their entire top side of the map locked in. The Gwen, Corki, and Zhao all taken straight away. We've seen AD carries kind of dropping a priority. It felt like last week what happened was a lot of people would take these safe picks, which are usually jungle and AD carry, because it's hard to just counter them out right immediately. And since then, people have been like, most of the power picks don't have that many counters, so we're just going to actually grab our solo lanes right out the gate. And so TSM trying to match them somewhat. They did grab the Viktor in response to the Corki. Didn't want that one to get banned out. We'll see what Golden Guardians targets now. Probably top lane bans for the most part, as TSM just keeps throwing more at Chime.
Yeah, the Yuumi is something that he had recently played in their Academy game and actually did struggle a little bit to get some effective ultimates, but it was because the composition overall lacked a little bit of that go button. So if they have something like the Zhao or something, they can actually make plays happen for their team. Excited to see Tony top on that Gwen too, but oh no, Akali.
Sag banned. I wanted the Chemtech assault Akali. I liked Whippo's idea. I was watching MidB stream and like some of his videos about the Chem Tank Akali to prepare for it. He was thinking like, what other mana-less champions can go up? Because most mid laners, you're still going to need some kind of mana problems if you don't go any sort of item there. And then Whippo was like, well, if you put it in the top lane, I'll just go Rengar. There you go. So I'm curious to see what people will continue to do if Chemtech is just this broken item, Chemtank, on more than Akali, or if it's just this Akali specific thing. I think it'll be something to keep an eye on in the meta, or if it's just going to get nerfed as outright an item in the next patch.
While we don't get to see any Akali play in this game, we are going to get to see a Graves hovering the Vayne for a moment, which was the threat over on Viper's side, but another prominent pick that's been coming to the table.
Yeah, the Graves into Gwen was a matchup we saw earlier in the day. It should be a little bit more favored for the Graves early on, I think, than what we saw when Someday took the Gwen and was actually just in control of the matchup, it felt like the entire time. No TF to support this time around, of course, so a couple more of those range matchups that would potentially bully as well. The Jace taken off. Here, Jinx, Thresh locked in. Surprised to see it available so late in the draft. Yeah, you ban out all these other supports and just leave up Jinx Thresh. I guess that's a shot at Chime's Thresh that they're like, we don't really care what else you play. Your Thresh is just not good enough.
Especially in such a high-pressure game where you're determining whether you're going to have a spot over in that knockout stage, but instead it is the Aphelios locked in. I believe that Instinct has played Aphelios for every single game here on the LCS stage thus far.
I mean, it's nice to have a couple players who are willing to just spam pick the same thing, give you some stability in your drafts. Because Viper does get a lot of these crazy counter picks in the top lane. Someone's got to sacrifice to enable that to happen. So far, it's been Instinct, but I have still seen him not just play it in the back foot. You know, like, yeah, Viper's aggressive. I'm aggressive too. I've seen a lot of his kind of Gale Force ins, trying to find pickoffs. I've been impressed overall with the TSM mindset. Yes, they are still a very young team, a pretty inexperienced team to a lot of their competition, but this is one of their best opportunities. And they did take down that FlyQuest last week, so definitely gotta give some respect to them.
And it wasn't just because of some faltering over on the FlyQuest side. TSM showing their own prominence, and Instinct being one of those bot laners that we are still looking to learn more about. Him and the rest of the team being vocal about the fact that he's a new pickup coming over, I believe from the 100 Thieves Next side, now making his way into Academy, and is still in that moldable stage. He doesn't really quite have a style that he's locked into, willing to try different things, and right now by having a consistent pick, can work more on the team macro and synergizing with his teammates.
Definitely. I think this is going to be an interesting game. I really want to watch the top matchup because, like I said, when we watched the 100 Thieves C9 game, it went very heavily in the Gwen's favor. This is the second time the Graves has been counterpicked into it. And the top lane meta in North America has been a little different than the rest of the world. We see pretty much zero Renekton priority. And all week as I'm watching the LPL and the LCKs go through, Red side banning out the Renekton in the first phase of bans, and we just keep seeing it go through here. So maybe there's a different read that they have here in North America, and we'll see if they can start actually using these counter picks to punish the Gwen blinds that people have been taking.
And nobody wants to feel the bite of that Gator, but everyone wants to find a way to try and take down the Gwen and the dominance that she has shown across the board. But here we are, everybody, on to the Rift we go. Golden Guardians taking on TSM to fight for that spot. And when we're talking about that top lane matchup in terms of champions, I think the players piloting these picks are very exciting as well. Tony Top has brought in a lot of experience, loving those split pushes and being able to carry on his own right.
It's kind of funny where like the biggest mismatches for each team are just totally opposed to each other. The most experienced player on TSM is Viper. The most inexperienced player on Golden Guardians is Tony Top. And then on the side of Golden Guardians, it's a bunch of people who played in the LCS last year, basically, and a bunch of players who you might have never heard of if you don't follow the Academy scene for TSM. So this is a situation where I expect TSM to try and get Viper ahead against Tony Top as a potential weak point that's a little less experienced. And then the rest of the time, I mean, Golden Guardians, probably playing around the Jinx Thresh lane would be my the most expected thing, because the Corki, you just don't play around Corki early on.
Jinx is just too powerful of something for you to ignore when it comes to the power that she offers to the rest of the team. And Viper, even though it had been a bit of time since we saw him on the LCS stage, he's been putting in the work, a Proving Grounds champion of last spring, finishing 4th with the Mortals Academy during summer, and now here showing out in the LCS.
Yep, so as expected, a lot of control for the Jinx Thresh lane early on. The Jinx Rockets combined with the Thresh range means it's pretty easy to control the lane. You see them kind of pulling it forward a little bit. I like this. You also have the Zhao starting on the top side, both teams clearing top to bottom. You know, like you heard in the cast earlier, the Graves kind of wants to be on an island, just be able to perma push the entire time, and both people want to end their clears around that bot lane where the most action is expected.
And then speaking on that bot lane and the way that it was shaking out with Jinx and Aphelios being so prominent, wanting to get stronger into later portions of the game, Yursan and Chime on the picks that are gonna allow them to roam and affect other portions of the map and be very effective in the team fighting as well. But already a shove up here on the bot side, Stixxay getting plenty of CS under his belt off of the aggressive ways that they were able to pose. Obviously, when you're playing something like the Thresh, you can continuously threaten with things like that death sentence, so that instinct has to be careful to not get popped.
Yeah, I like how they're playing lane right now. Stixxay is, ooh, hold on here.
Up, going in with the E, a Flay to bring Yursan back inside. Somewhat of a drag, but it's just gonna be poked for now as both of the supports get chunked down and the ADCs stay nice and healthy.
Yeah, but Yursan felt like he panic ignited there. There was no chance that they were actually gonna kill anyone, and that was definitely a, look, I can deal a little bit more damage to you. Maybe they're trying to get some pre-chunk in. Sometimes you do an aggressive trade early on so you can go in again later, knowing that they have the Viego in their back pocket, but it was warded out early by Golden Guardians, knowing they had the push. Now we're going to get a Scuttlecraft fight.
Oh boy, haven't seen many of these in Season 12 ever since the changes to the early Scuttle Crab. Hyper's just going to let that go over to Iconic. They knew the warding that was afforded to GG on this bot side prior, so this is additional vision that GG can have on the bot side to try and play to that strength when it comes to the future Drakes.
Yeah, they're just going to keep letting that keep pushing in. They're going to go scuttle to scuttle potentially. Ryoma was looking like he wants to reset. You have Iconic running across the map. There's going to be a TP back in from Ryoma, and they're going to be able to get double Scuttle Crab here. Not the end of the world, though, with the decrease in experience and stuff that the Crab gives on the first Crab.
Just some additional vision across the line of scrimmage. Meanwhile, on the top side, pokes galore between Tony Top and Viktor. They're both about 20% HP, a flash away from Tony Top, knowing that Hyper is right here on the horizon, but Iconic is looking for the collapse. Channeling in with the Maw. Tony Top's gonna go down, but not after they get first blood. Iconic drawing it through effectively. Flash away here from Hyper, but he is still pursued by the enemy jungler. 2 kills, and on the bot side, the action continues. Chime flashes all across the board from both sides here. Not going to be additional contest from the bot laners, but 2-1 on the scoreboard at that.
TSM and Golden Guardians getting out in action early, testing you in your play-by-play pipes. Yeah, that was a really scrappy fight in the top lane. Looked like an early flash by Tony Top. I'm not sure why he went exactly then versus holding it for the Viego stun and then try and counter out there, but Iconic was still in range and able to collapse and take that trade. Not only did they win it, but Hyper kind of wasted a flash there, so Iconic was able to hold his, wait for a second set of cooldowns. big advantage in the top lane now, or at least in the jungle for Iconic picking up both those kills.
Kind of quick fingers on the side of TSM, but a little advanced with their Summoner Rift.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm talking about here. I think he knows, like, when the ward gets swept out, obviously he's like, oh, I gotta go, but I don't know why you had to flash right then. Here it'd be really nice to have so you can try and flash over to Iconic and dodge out on that stun. He does time it with his reposition, so he kind of ate the stun during that movement period and could then get damage back out. So that portion was played very well by Tony Top about when he actually used his movement ability there. Well done to still make the most of a bad situation and set up Iconic to get those 2 kills.
And hey, Hyper still managed to get a kill for himself. Viego waiting to get that opportunity to pop off on the kills to have more of an effect in the later portions of the game, but a blast cone used by TSM on the bot side. Flash forward, goes in with the E, a nice stun up onto the enemy support, and Chime is all on his lonesome as Stixxay flashing under his turret as well. A nice kill achieved in the favor of TSM.
Keeping the tempo up there, basically straight off the reset for Hyper running down to the bot lane, and with all the aggression that we saw, I'm not quite sure how they got the initial flash out of Chime on the first time when we were watching the replay top, but they did a good job communicating that. Obviously, Yursan and Instinct were like, hey, Hyper, come down here. They're pushing up in lane again, and they have no flashes. This is an easy chase down. And they're going to potentially keep repeating onto the Thresh. I mean, Thresh is a lane-dominant champion with Aftershock, which he actually went Guardian here. I'm a little surprised not to see the Aftershock so you can't get exploded like that, because that is one of the things. If you start getting targeted, you can kind of get chain killed here. The Flay angled it a little bit, and Yursan was able to sneak through, and then just really easy to kill him here. And I like the reposition by Yursan there to be like, okay, you guys have the Thresh, I'm gonna go after Stixxay and force his flash.
And Yursan and Hyper in particular is a duo that we need to keep our eyes on in terms of TSM's success, because earlier on in the week when they were playing the Academy games, they did falter a bit, keeping some losses when they weren't quite on the same page, and their victories when they 2-0'd in their most recent matchup were because it finally felt like the support and the jungler were on the same page. And getting to see that execution of plays, capitalizing upon the absence of summoner spells is something that you want when going for the victory.
Now past 7 minutes in the game, level 6 is unlocked. Corki's first package should be up soon. We'll have to see what they choose to go with. They might not be able to control the bot lane anymore. Like we were saying, that's going to be one of the strong points. And when you're a new team starting out, you want to have some early game plans. Hey, we have bot control most of this game with the Jinx Thresh. The Corki package will be a great time to go for first dragon. Let's try and do something like that. But once those things start going awry, that's when the veteran leadership becomes very useful to be like, hey, I've been in a situation like this before, now let's make this adjustment. They don't look like they're totally out of control of the lane phase, but you can see how much more, how scared Chime is now compared to how he wants to be playing the lane without his flash.
So maybe turning towards those veterans, as we mentioned before, with those objectives on the rise. Dragon on the bot side has spawned. We're at the 8-minute mark, which means not only is Corki patch available, but the Rift Herald on the top side for someone to execute and take for themselves if they desire.
Yep, here's the package. Well, see what they choose to do with it. They have really good vision control in the bot river. TSM has snuck a couple wards past the actual vision line. They have one on the jungle entrance as well as the river brush there right under mid lane. But for the most part, Golden Guardians are going to know where Hyper is showing on that ward. They're pinging that. We'll see if they want to contest this or if they feel a little too weak. 6 on Stixxay and Instinct. Support's still looking.
Iconic hovering around this bot side. Hyper keeping his eyes on the Drake that he's pulled out of the pit somewhat after controlling or clearing out one of those control wards. Manages to finish it up, but over on the bot, a nice hook onto Yursan and the Flay to continue. The attempted ultimate from Instinct on the opposite side, but it does not net him a kill. Instead, they lose 2 on TSM's side, and Golden Guardians coming up with an advantage.
Yeah, kind of a slow burn response by Golden Guardians there, not rushing to contest the dragon, saying, yes, you can take the dragon, but Corki, Ryoma pushes in mid first, so the Viktor has to choose exactly what he wants to do, and that allows him to basically go 1v1 Hyper after the dragon. Meanwhile, Iconic showed in the lane, and it felt like TSM were a little unsure. Are we supposed to go help Hyper, or are we supposed to just run underneath our turret? And it was a nice hook by Chime there to set that kill up.
And one of the biggest things that on the Golden Guardians roster that you're looking at is Iconic. His time spent within this particular lineup is in hopes of getting him to be more vocal, taking that leadership role as a jungler, and seeing when you can find those opportunities to capitalize upon some disarray that TSM might find themselves within this game. 3v3 hovered around this mid side, but the warding is in TSM's favor, so they're not too worried about any potential plays from GG.
Yep, both supports showing up, seeing if the other team was doing the Rift Herald. Not quite yet. We have the bot laners left alone, and Instinct just got his recall off. Wasn't able to finish his Gale Force there, unfortunately.
Not quite the position you want to be in when, hey, every ADC loves getting that Gale Force, especially immobile ones like these. But we're finally getting to see some Rift Herald action here, prioritized by TSM. We knew that this was coming based on the vision that they had established before, and GG not wanting to contest it, instead going and retreating to their lanes.
Yeah, there's a bit of an assist me ping there by Stixxay. It looked like they weren't sure if they wanted to contest the Rift Herald or not, and enough people stuck around that he couldn't get quite as much chip damage down onto the turret plates as he wanted, but they're still trying to make the rotation faster than the rest of TSM, who have to get there from Rift Herald. They have a bit of an inside track now, getting behind Instinct.
And plates coming down in favor of Stixxay. Iconic, the target of the Leona and the ultimate landing onto 2. The route to follow throws down the box, a flash out here from the GG side, but Hyper, he's coming from the jungle. He goes in for the ultimate, manages to get one onto Chime just to skew. Yursan misses the E, and Iconic finds his escape.
Double teleport, though, completed by TSM. Pretty defensive. That gives Corki and Gwen alone time to push into the lanes. 2 kills, or a kill and a flash, I guess, for Iconic. It was well defended by Yursan by himself. It feels like a bit of an overcommitment, but they do have the Rift Herald to drop down here now as well, so they might be able to finish off the bot turret after TPing everyone in.
Pop, lock, and drop some of those plates. Stixxay and Iconic knew that they weren't going to be able to contest that. Finish off the Jelly so she doesn't get an additional charge. And GG really taking the opportunity to capitalize upon these wave states. And as you were saying, push in some of the solo lanes as well. Tony top finding Viper returning to the lane.
Yeah, it's like one of those times where everyone wants to be a team player, but maybe you're being a little bit too much of a team player. I mean, we'll see if we get another look at it, but Yursan actually stuffed that dive on his own. It felt like everyone else was just finishing the TPs because they thought they were going to need them, and he's like, nah, I got it. And then the rest of the team actually could have just stayed in their spots. Golden Guardians in a pretty good spot. This is the Hex Drinker rush that they were talking about when you have double AP usually. Here he goes it just against the Viktor. I'm a little surprised to see that out of Ryoma, as opposed to just continuing on with your build, picking up your mythic item right away after getting your tier and Muramana rushed.
A lot of double AP in some of the compositions we've seen so far in the season, eh?
Yeah, it's not too rare, especially if you're the side with the Gwen. You're often going to be that double AP, but Corki into mostly physical damage, it is a little bit of a surprise. Nice interrupt there by Viper. I mean, it makes you very good in the 1v1 against the Viktor. You can be a little bit more aggressive with just like trying to package on top of his face. Potentially we'll see some aggressive plays by Ryoma.
Yeah, I'm liking the look of it. Yursan and Chime, as expected, just not really spending as much time bot anymore. We saw a good chunk of time where Stixxay had that free farming. He's up in that CS right now. Still a kill to both of these AD carries as well. Yursan escorting Hyper into enemy jungle territory. Not quite gonna run into anything just yet, but hoping to establish some vision safely. Comes down through the Herald pathing. Chime, though, knows that there's some danger on the horizon and instead comes to protect Stixxay, even throwing out a lantern just in case.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I like TSM working together here mid-jungle, or jungle support combination to get vision control and want to finish off this bot lane turret. As well, Tony Top just finished his TP into the top lane, and so there was a potential there that it would have been hard to force that turret down if Tony held his TP, but I don't mind Tony kind of playing a little bit more selfishly when you're on the Gwen here, wanting to get a good reset so you can keep the pressure up on the Graves potentially, who has both them completed their first item, though. Riftmaker, a little bit stronger of a first item, it's like.
Just a little bit, and with that Riftmaker can try and pull some of the attention towards that top side if needed, while Golden Guardians off of their shove can go ahead and pick up this second Drake. The first one taken by TSM. Infernal now in their pocket so they can stop that stacking. Whew. And what do you know, it's going to be a Mountain Drake on the horizon.
That feels good to look at too. The FTX total gold, your 3 carries, each 1, 2, 3 in the game.
Let's go.
In a pretty good spot.
Oh, Yursan goes for it, manages to get the connect, a defensive ultimate from Chime here. Also got the solar flare out from the Leona, so some additional poking between the 2v2.
Yep, not too bad. I think it was a good attempt by Yursan. You weren't sure exactly where the Thresh was, but he was somewhat able to turn that engage back. No summoners forced out. Both reset.
Back over to the bot side, just a bit more of that continuous chunk. There was a moment right there, Ryoma and Takeover still chilling in the mid lane, and the junglers here as well. But the top side might be the next focus. Hyper actually going to go for a back here. Iconic is in the vicinity, but won't know that he's over in that tri-bush, so he's going to get that back.
That's a loud skin recall. I don't know if it sounds as loud to other people. That's an obnoxious skin recall.
I didn't hear it that loud.
Maybe it's just me. It's like rock music playing the whole time he's recalling.
You got that supersonic hearing over there, you know, making me
Maybe
feel
that's why they
F
picked that skin. They're trying to annoy their team when they just recall in their face. I'd be spamming recall in Baron situations so they can just keep hearing that.
What is more annoying, the spanning of backing or the spanning of dancing?
I think they're equally as effective. Whatever the animation is that's more obnoxious. Depends on the champ, I guess. As Jat said, the analyst answer is, it depends.
It depends!
Even when you're memeing.
Always the clear out if you're an analyst trying to break it down. But I know that's not always the priority for the players. Some of them do kind of have that aficionado for trying to tilt their opponent off the face of the earth, but not necessarily in this case just yet. Tony Top and Viper just spending a lot of time chilling, matching each other over in this top side. Pretty even in farm as well. As we mentioned before, already had that mythic completed. Gale Forces also now picked up for both Stixxay and Instinct ahead of any future team fight.
Yeah, a little bit of a slow game for making these big plays, it feels like. After that initial explosiveness in the top and the bot lane at the same time, there hasn't been a ton for each team to do. Viktor, Corki, notoriously slow. The top laners feel pretty neutral right now, and the junglers and supports are roaming around trying to make something happen, just poking back and forth at each other. Might not see anything until the next dragon. Each of them have one, though, so it's not even like anyone's bum rushing soul point, you know? It's going to be a little while.
Yeah, a little slow, just a 1.3k gold lead for GG. Even distribution of these objectives. You do have the Rift Herald up, the last one previously taken by TSM, and it looks like they're trying to pick another one up for themselves. Curious if Iconic and the squad are going to try and make any contest for it, but in the end, it's 4 members of TSM that have locked into it. Tony Top also still hanging out in lane. But no action thus far. Ultimate from downtown, and that's the Rift Herald going down.
Yeah, now they just have to pick up the soul. Instead, they're going to go for an engage.
Yursan going for it. Chime flashing out of it. Double teleport coming in, and Chime is still the subject of Viper. Manages to land the hook, which means that Stixxay can free farm right here. But it's a little bit of chaos as some of the fight is still going down in the pit. Hyper getting the kill onto Iconic. Ryoma trying to create some distance. Throws down a phosphorus bomb for some additional poke. But Takeover not dead yet. Flashes, and it's an auto from Stixxay that manages to land. Viper quick drawing on through. It's Hyper that's here to try and get you, but GG are standing strong. So many chunked HP bars. Ryoma picking one up. It's the 2-for-2 trade thus far, and now everyone walks away safely.
What a crazy Rift Herald fight there. TSM flashing in on Yursan to start it up, and it just got so split with the focus of Viper trying to finish off Chime. Led to one fight breaking down in the pit that came down to the double marksman. After all the craziness happens, they just didn't have any ways to lock them down and finish them off. So Ryoma and Stixxay kind of played cleanup and were able to make it an even trade overall. Still slightly in TSM's favor. They did get a worse reset off the back of it. You see Ryoma healthy enough to keep pushing and potentially grab this turret. But on the flip side, TSM was still able to grab the Rift Herald Eye.
Everybody that was still up after that fight, their HP just so low, so close, and you got to give it to Golden Guardians to not at least try to over-chase in that regard for it.
Yeah, so like you said, Viper went a little bit tunnel vision here. This was a nice attempt by Stixxay to just shoot his ult out, see if he can snipe it with the explosion damage. Chime just trying to be annoying, so they just engage straight up on him. I like Iconic's counter engage here and hopping onto Instinct, almost able to solo him out by himself. Nice combo between Stixxay and Chime, able to stay away. Chime, nice footwork on the Graves ultimate. And then you see, because Chime went, or excuse me, oh my god, jungler, Golden Guardians. Iconic went in. Yeah, thank you. Iconic went in to try and save the fight. It allowed Stixxay and Ryoma to kind of pincer out onto both sides, and it's just hit closest target. Hyper getting a little over aggressive, wasn't able to get the kill. Ryoma getting aggressive. That last rocket just barely missing on Hyper to get the actual kill, make it a 3-for-2.
So close, and now back to the current state of things. Another Drake being targeted right down here in the bottom, picked up by Iconic, so they do have a double stack of that, but it means that the Rift Herald can get dropped over here on the top side. Breaking down that turret, escorted by almost the entirety of TSM, everybody except for Takeover, so they can get the additional charge. Tony Top and Chime left here to defend.
It's one of the downsides of staying on the map after you win a team fight. The enemy team respawns. Yes, Ryoma grab the top turret, but it gave a window for TSM to do the same, and Stixxay was stuck holding mid lane against the Viktor. So Takeover, able to keep collecting farm, staying even.
Is this one loud?
Yeah, the observers are trolling me at this point.
But I like that one. It's got some block bugs too, so.
Too loud.
I don't know.
I'm a grandpa, I guess.
Are you a lo-fi listener predominantly?
No, I listen to like Screamo. You know that Fire Festival thing that's going around Twitter?
Yeah!
Everyone was like, I can't wait. That's gonna be a disaster.
I tried so hard to find all of the, maybe emo pics of myself that were out there, and then I realized I hated cameras and didn't take very many. I felt a little left out.
I fortunately never had like a phase in terms of my style matching my interest in music. I was aware enough not to do that.
That's fair. I liked the cargo pants, and you know what? Just anything comfortable in Minecraft. But sitting nice and comfy really at this game. A little bit of that chaos that we saw around the objectives, but back to just a more tranquil state.
Yeah, so in terms of scaling, I don't feel like there's a substantial advantage to either side. They both have someone who can side lane, but neither the Gwen or Graves really dominated the matchup and got super far off the ground. It should favor Gwen in the long run, but given that you're 0, 2, and 3, you're not very far into that game plan of outscaling the Graves in the side lane. So it's mostly front-to-back team fighting for both teams. You have the double marksman like we talked about for Golden Guardians, double backline for TSM as well in the Aphelios and Viktor. Both have huge damage. A little bit better front line for the jungle position and Iconic and how the zone of control that Zhao can give. But at the same time, their team has Leona. So both teams are actually very similar and very fragile front lines as the game goes on. You can easily get exploded if you get CC'd. So it's going to be one of those touch and go situations where every time they're squaring off and staring each other down, anyone who missed positions can get insta-killed.
And making sure that both teams are prepared for those team fights when they come through, because we're at that teleport territory unleashed for Tony Top and Viper, holding onto those and having them at the ready so they can join the team fight whenever necessary. But doesn't look like we're going to get some of that action yet. Right now, just continuing to establish some of the vision over on that top side. It is dominated by a couple control wards from TSM, so they know that Golden Guardians are pushing up into their jungle at this point in time.
Yeah, good job by Golden Guardians working their way in here. They've had a gold lead now for a little while. It's gone back and forth between 2 and 3 gold, K gold effectively. A takeover. Whoa!
Takeover! Ryoma said, nah, I'm gonna stop you right there. Nobody likes seeing you around this top side, so they eliminate him and just back off nicely to clear some of this wave.
Exactly what I was talking about with that Hex Drinker pickup. You feel a little bit more comfortable just falcing on top of the gravity field. You're not worried about getting 100 to 0 back with that extra defensive item picked up. So very aggressive play by Ryoma, who has quietly been having one of the better group stages for mid laners in Group A. I mean, obviously, Abadaga and Fudge are in that conversation as well, but Ryoma has gotten a number of solo kills over the course of this lock-in stage. So pretty impressive showcase for him as someone who's been effectively one of the best mid laners in Academy for the past year or so.
And very vocal about it in his interviews too, acknowledging that, hey, I feel I proved I was the best mid laner in Academy. I want to do so again. When he stepped down from the LCS roster and into the Academy assistant over on 100 Thieves, he was very much in an improvement mindset and trying to make the most of it. And I think people are wanting to see what he does under a different banner now, and if he can continue that growth that he has been working on for so long at this point. Alongside a lot of the other players within this game, we talked about the fact that TSM, a lot of more unfamiliar faces, and having that chance to prove themselves is right now Golden Guardians escort that mid wave so that they can take that turret.
Yeah, a little bit better macro by Golden Guardians, both in terms of grabbing that turret as well as the vision control around Baron that allowed Ryoma to find that sneak up opportunity on to Takeover. And I think that is one of the advantages when we talked about the amount of veterans on TSM versus Golden Guardians. Viper, even as the veteran, is not that veteran compared to someone like Stixxay. So there's a lot more leadership available. You saw those assist me pings during some of the rotations around Rift Herald where Stixxay was kind of, you could tell, verbally telling his team what to do. I think this is one of the things that might work in their advantage over the course of this game as we get into these objective setups.
Stixxay is literally a coach now. I think you can look to him to kind of hold together the team in a mental and strategic perspective. And I'm sure enjoying this additional time on the Rift as well. Gotten to see a lot of aggressive play from him, whether it's on the Jinx or trusted picks like the Ezreal, and having that experience with Chime in particular so that they can bring that through in their performance.
Yeah, in TSM there, you see they ate 1 or 2 rockets from Ryoma. They weren't even that chunked out, but the difficulty of walking forward once Golden Guardians gets vision control set up, potentially getting hooked out, having to worry about the Jinx zap slowing you, just any poke that comes through. So now that they've fallen behind up to 3K gold now, and here comes the aggressive package.
Similar movement again, the package going all the way to the back line to try and get some of that pick onto Takeover, who did flash away. Viper teleports in. The majority of Golden Guardians are clumped right now. If TSM try to go for a play, the ultimate from Instinct popping over the wall. Chime's the first one to fall at the hand of Viper, throwing back two with the ultimate from Iconic, going into stasis. Hyper goes, but the rest of his team is chunked down. Tony Top starting to get online, picks up 1, picks up 2, picks up a team fight for the squad.
Nice teleport there by Tony Top, getting involved. Jace funneling them into his zone. Iconic brought them in as well. They overextended onto Chime. Yeah, nice TSM, you got that kill, but now Golden Guardians are going to be able to grab the Baron.
They grab it, they take it, a few more hits will do it. Golden Guardians, 3 Drakes under their belt, a Red Bull Baron buff at their disposal to capitalize upon the pressure they have been offering across this map.
Ryoma also the one kicking it off again with the package, looking very nice.
Let's go, Tommy!
3-0-4 right now, on his way to picking up the Ravenous Hydra as well. Using that more defensive build, I was saying like maybe I'm a little critical of it. You heard Jat talking about wanting GA third potentially to use the package in that way, but he understands what his threats are. He's not going to get 100-0 by most of the people on TSM. The one with the biggest amount of burst damage is the Viktor, and if he can't punch through your health bar, then you're able to win.
And we get to relive that moment in the Rockhat Flip the Switch replay. It was quite a superb one.
Yeah, so you saw him go in there. He got back down to about 2/3 HP, really not that low. And then Yursan gets baited into over-engaging onto Chime. Yes, nice that you're able to insta-kill him, but now all 3 people are grouped up. You saw him take a fat burst of damage from Corki. They're able to get all of these needlework going through them by Tony Top, just running through the entire team, getting all those extra kills. It was just overextending on the least important member on the side of Golden Guardians. They have so many threats. Chime is not one of them.
And champs like Gwen love to throw the needlework in a single direction when, hey, we're in the jungle. I've got one lane that I can throw this down and get the damage. And Golden Guardians making sure that they do what they can with this Baron buff, bringing that power to the bot side. They've already chunked through a couple turrets, now setting their eyes directly onto the inhibitor. An attempt right now from TSM to keep them to the wayside. Yursan gets chunked down though, which means that there's a free firing coming from Golden Guardians onto 2 inhibitors at this point in time. Feeling good about it.
Yursan's lucky he got out with his life there. It was the classic Leona engage onto Thresh where you get flayed out of your E and hooked right back in.
Another hook, another flay, another flash away from Hyper. They lose their support Yursan in this, which means Golden Guardians have the okay to hit that go button. They hit onto one Nexus turret. That's half of the defenses that have been eradicated. Still have a wave coming from this bot side too. So if they want to stay, they can continue pressuring this. TSM throwing out the autos. What can they do about it? Another death sentence, another follow-up. Even with the stun up onto Iconic, he gets out of this safely. All eliminated except for Takeover. Double kill from Stixxay here. A continuation for the triple, and Golden Guardians pull out the victory, keeping their hopes alive in lock-in.
Yes, they are able to. That's the head-to-head matchup that they have in their favor now at 1 and 3. Going to be seeing them in the best of 3 stage, if I'm not mistaken. Nicely done by Golden Guardians to clinch it out when it mattered most.
And that's where you can really test your growth as players. Can you keep your head calm, cool, and collected? Can you be on the same page in the face of adversity, in the face of elimination, and now get to truly put themselves to the test when it comes to best of 3s?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what more we can see from this team. There's been flashes of brilliance so far. I think Ryoma has been very impressive, like I said, over the course of the group stage. And Tony Top, big bit of redemption for him this game. I think he's been someone that they've been looking at a little critically online communities and stuff like that. And this was a good game for him going up against Viper. We talked about maybe being the biggest mismatch given the experience that Viper has, but he really didn't struggle even in laning phase, which should be the best part for Graves. I think Tony Top looked pretty good this game as well.
He was one of the members of that Evil Geniuses Academy system actually last year, and then now finding the place on Golden Guardians to really expand upon that. Very aggressive player. I think Tim Sevenhusen also put him in his top 10 prospects going into this year before
yeah.
he even made his switch to another team. So definitely should be keeping our eye on him.
Yeah, I think that was all great to see. Unfortunate for TSM. I think that is the end of the road for them. We'll have to see if I'm correct about that. But it was a game where it felt like it was hard to navigate since both team comps did very similar things. Yursan felt the pressure to engage, I think, a lot of times there, but just got a little overeager at points.
In the earlier portions of the game where we saw those plays happening bot, right? Yursan being willing to make it happen, Hyper joining him into that action, using blast cones and things of the like. It shows you what they can do when they're coordinated. But when it was team fight versus team fight and then just clashing in a way where people like Ryoma were able to pop off, it was difficult to see how they were going to turn from that in that moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of things for them to learn from this game, but overall, TSM can hold their heads high. They still took down FlyQuest.
Yeah, still took down FlyQuest. Still a lot of play for them across the multiple leagues that they're competing in. We're going to go ahead and toss things over to the State Farm analyst.